Welcome to the Solemn Vanguard channel. Today we're on episode 2 of getting into Premium. We're gonna be going over all the decks you could be playing in Premium right now or in the very near future. So as I said in the last episode, there are two categories. On the one hand, you have the G decks that were well supported in G and don't have new support from V yet. So they're still running the old triggers, they're not running any gift markers. And then on the other hand, you have the V supported decks, which is more of a blend between V cards and G cards. So for the pre-V stuff, the first deck you could be playing is Luard. Now of course Luard has the amazing plus engine, it has the aggression from Dagda and Dragabyss, and overall it always has access to Ultima. There's many reasons why Luard is still a pretty solid deck right now, even without the new triggers. Then there's ZTB. Now ZTB didn't do anything in ARG Nats, I believe, but it's still a solid option. Heritage is still great. The deck pluses insane amounts still. And so if you want to run ZTB and you like calling from decks all the toolboxing, that's still an option. Apart from that, many people started selling their ZTB decks because they want to get into standard, and so it's actually really cheap right now. Then there's Dominate. Dominate has a tougher time because of the new trigger amounts that really stop their turns, but overall it still has loads of aggression, and so if defensive triggers don't happen, the deck destroys you no matter what deck you're playing. Then there's Sharot. Of course, it still has the amazing guard restrict. Baleful Repressor only got better now that draw PGs exist. And of course, the deck can still win on an enigmatic assassin demagogue turn, so like, it can still do some damage. Now of course, there's also Ange, or Anji, that just pluses insane amounts. It's probably the best Bermuda deck right now, if not one of the best premium decks out there. It doesn't have V support yet. It would be great if it had it, but it really doesn't care. Then there's Coral, just insane aggression, even on the first stride, even on the first ride even. And Shushu, also just a lot of plussing and a lot of aggression. Now of course, I will end this little section by saying you could literally play any deck if that's what you want. I'm just going over the ones that still have quite some competitive viability in my opinion right now. From the pre-V decks, I would say the best ones are Luard and Ange. I would also maybe name Sharot, but those are probably the best ones. Now getting into stuff that's actually standard supported by now, we should probably start with Q4. Now the big obvious elephant in the room right here is blasters. You just play your Alfred, and your older blasters support G cards like Lu, Floral Paladin, Flogel, and that just gives you a very aggressive early game into your strides, which then also have loads of multi-attacking. It's just really solid, especially with the force markers. Now one thing, and this is going to be an option for all of the decks I'm going to list, you could also just run your G deck, like Altmile for example, and then put in the new triggers or some new other cards to make it up to date without being forced to play blasters. That being said though, you wouldn't have access to force markers, and so if the value of the force markers is really high, it may still be wise to go for blasters. Next deck in Q4, Nova Grappler. Now Nova Grappler has two camps. On the one hand, you have people who say, okay, I'm gonna take the Perfect Razor, I'm gonna get my Excel circles, and then I will use some of the generic G support to get my really strong multi-attacks going. That's an option. So what you do is you just write Perfect Razor, get the Excel circle, start striding, use some of your GB restricted cards that are very good. But of course you miss out on all the Victor based cards. Now the other camp says no, that's actually not as good. The Excel circle doesn't give enough value. What I want to do is I want to ride Victor still. I want to use my Victor based cards and only add the new triggers and maybe some other key cards into the deck. So you're still running the Victor deck with the Victor archetype names. You're missing out on the Excel circle, but you do get all the new triggers. Those are the two camps, those are the two options. Personally, I'm not sure what the best option is. That's really up to you to test, but both options are out there. Next, Kaguro, of course, the elephant in the room yet again, Overlords. You literally have Dragonic Overlord with a force marker, and all your Overlord support from G works with it. So you basically just get to play your Overlord deck from GBT 13 and just replace the grade 3. Of course, there's some other things you can replace, but that's the general idea. You're still playing that GBT 13 Overlord deck. Of course, you also now have access to the finisher Dragonic Waterfall, so if that's your jam, you can also run that. Finally, for set Q4, you could be playing OTT, and OTT has two actually competitive viable options. First of all, you have Ichitom. Now, while it didn't get further than top 16 because it's just not as great as some people are making it out to be, it's still a thing. It's competitively viable, so if you want to play Ichitom, you can go right ahead. Or what you could also play, which got second at ARG Nationals, OTT Gize. You know, OTT just has so many cards that can check top, check top, check top all the time, and so you can actually boost into your Gize very, very fast. Next up, Destructive Roar. We start off with Spikes, of course. You can just play the build that topped Premium ARG Nationals. Or what you could also do is play the more hell-hard rush version, where you rush into the GB8 and win with that. Both are viable. Some people may think that the ARG Nationals build was actually a hell-hard rush build, but it was really not. It didn't run the old mecha trainer. It didn't try to force into loads of heal triggers to then G-guard into hell-hard on your first or second stride. It didn't do that. It played with Agrias and other strides like that, and then it could go hell-hard as a plan C, I think Living Proof called it. So basically, Spikes, you could run either. You have the option to play that ARG-based build, the Living Proof build, or you could play the Hellhard build. Next up is Tachi. Tachi has this interesting issue where not a lot of people really know what to do with it. Some people really want to cling to Gaia. Other people are actually playing the Rex variant right now. Personally, I have no idea what the better option is. I'm hoping the Tachi community keeps on searching for the ideal build, because I know Tachi has a very, very tight-knit community. So that should be coming out pretty soon. Regardless, I do think the Rex thing may be better because you have access to the Excel Circle and some of the generic G support. Finally, for Destructive Roar, we have a Mega Colony. Now, one of the obvious builds is Machinings, because yes, the grade 3 you got is machining, and so you get your protect marker whilst also getting all the G and before that machining support, which is just amazing. It controls your opponent very well, and then eventually you have your ticking time bomb, your Zoa together with the grade 3, forming an almost unblockable attack. Now, getting into Champions of Asia, and this is probably the one I have the most experience with out of all my playtesting, we of course start with Aqua Force. So Aqua Force again has multiple camps, and of course when I say multiple camps, it's not just that you have two builds, two, let's say, mindsets as far as the start of your build goes, and then in those builds you still have hundreds of options regardless. So there's these two mindsets. One is pure Maelstrom. There's many people who really wished for a Maelstrom return. They've been wishing for a Maelstrom return all throughout G. We got some Maelstrom cards, wasn't good enough. So now there's many people who say, okay, yes, we finally get some Maelstrom stuff. I am playing Maelstrom. And so there's people playing the pure Maelstrom build, meaning they play the 4 new Maelstrom, they play Corelia, they play Elder Moss, they play all the Maelstrom strides, and their backup grade 3s are all Maelstroms because they try to do that whole guard restrict thing, and that's the possible build. So basically, just like Blasters and Overlords, the new grade 3 that this clan got was exactly the one that had support from before. So because of that, you can build that completely archetypical Maelstrom build. Now the other variant is actually where you go, okay, I actually don't care about Maelstrom, I just want my Excel Circle, and then I'll use the generic support from earlier together with that Excel Circle. So you would play, let's say, Diamantes or Naval Gazer Dragon or even Maelstrom, doesn't really matter, to set up your Excel Circles and just keep on striding into Alexandros, use your Tidal Assaults to restand, do all those double restands to just smash your opponent's face in rather than winning on guard restricts like Maelstrom usually tries to do. Finally, there's another camp, and that is just the pure Tavas camp. Just like in Nova Grappler, where people are like, wait a sec, I really want to play this Victor with his cards, and then I just use the new triggers and maybe some other cards to really solidify this build. Some people want to be doing that for Tavas. So you still ride into Tavas grade 3, but then you start running front triggers, but you at least have access to Shipra, Melania, and so forth. Personally, I'm not really sure which one I want to play right now. All of them have their merits. I'm the least fan of the pure Maelstrom build because Ichitom is just a better guard restrict than Maelstrom will ever be, in my opinion. And so because of that, I think there's more merit to either the G build with maybe Maelstrom as your main grade 3 ride, but you don't try to force, all those weird guard restricts things with engulf and stuff. So yeah, I'm not really sure yet. I'm still testing everything out, and I will let you know when I'm really sure about it. Next up is Grand Blue. Now Grand Blue is really nice. I've been playtesting it yesterday. You basically run Baskerk and Skull Dragon. You keep on riding those. You keep on striding into Nitro Stride or Gouache or Negro Songer, depending on how your field is playing out. You get multi-attacks from Colombard, but you just use gigantic Skull Dragons to keep hitting face. You have endless amounts of PGs because, first of all, your draw PGs can be gotten back with Negromora. You have your draw PGs themselves, and you have your protect markers, so it's really impossible to be killed at all. And then eventually you just win on Galleon or Megiddo. It's a really interesting build, to be honest. You just out-advantage your opponent. Now, again, there's another camp, people who go, wait, I prefer Nitros, I want those multi-attacks, and then they just use the newer triggers because they feel like the value Nitros, Negrolazy, and Negrobone creates is higher than the value the protect markers create. Both options are valid, and so that's up to you. I'm not really sure yet which one of the two will be the on top winner, but with that being said, if the Zoa ticking time bomb and the Ichitom remain a thing in the meta, I do think the protect markers have more value than the Nitros. Finally, for Champions of Asia, we have Dimension Police. Now that is an interesting one. It's actually one I've been testing against because Chris plays that, and that's just sick. Like, if they go first, they will ride grade 3 on your grade 1, and then they will stride on your grade 2. And from there, it's just going into the big GR that keeps on restanding together with Laurel for extra crits. And it's like, either you have 3 PGs in hand or you just cry and die. So that's one interesting thing right there, actually, because a lot of the old cards work with the new ones, especially for TP. But more importantly, the whole protect beats force beats Excel thing actually works out. When I played against Chris, winning with my Aqua Force deck against DP was almost impossible. I think I won once or 0 times, and then there was one time I got really close to winning, and then he just healed. But so overall, the Excel Aqua Force thing has a really tough time against that DP build, but then the second I switched to Grand Blue, it was impossible to lose. Like literally, okay, sure, you can go and try attacking 20 times with a 100k Vanguard with 20,000 crits. I just protect and I draw PG, or I G-guard into draw PG. Like, you can just keep on protecting. And so in this case, in this booster specifically, protect absolutely destroys force, and force absolutely destroys Excel. This is not the case for all clans, but it's the case for quite a few. Now, next up, we have things that are partially based on speculation, for the simple fact that we didn't actually get all the cards for AL4 yet. But I do think there's value in discussing it, because if we look at the older decks, usually the effects of the cards didn't really matter. Like, Maelstrom could have literally been vanilla and it wouldn't have changed a thing in Premium because you just stride over it and it has the Maelstrom name. So with that in mind, I am going to comment on the clans that are coming because we know a few things about their names already, and we're just going to ignore the abilities altogether because they're not that relevant usually. So with that being said, AL4, let's start with Shadow Paladin. So again, we don't know what Phantom Blaster Dragon will do, but we know that he has Phantom and Blaster in the name. That means if we're gonna build a Shadow Paladin Blaster deck, we can use the Phantom Blaster Dragon for the Force marker. We have access to all of the G-based Blaster support, like Dorint, Claudas, Karen, Darkheart Trumpeter. Also, we have access to Judge Ba Revenger, because we have a Phantom Vanguard. And that's pretty interesting. I do want to run Judge Ba Revenger to get the Sword Breakers out, to get all that draw. If you haven't playing for that long, basically, what you do is you attack with your Phantom Blaster Dragon, boosted by Judge Ba Revenger. If they let it hit, Judge Ba Revenger's skill activates, he goes into Soul. You call 2 cards from your deck, which is 2 Sword Breakers, which both then let you draw 2 cards. One attack turned into a -1 and then a +4, which is nuts. After that, you usually go into an Aura Geyser, sack off the 2 Sword Breakers to get +2 again into your hand. That's something that the Revenger Abyss deck actually did back in the really start of G. And this deck is gonna run almost exactly the same. Just like back then, you have access to all the blaster-based cards. You have access to loads of generic G strides, even more than before, which are all really good. Like Shadow Paladin has, I would say, the best generic strides in the game. And so you have loads of ways to win the game, and you always have access to everything. So that's gonna be that build. And again, you have a second camp of people going, I think Luard is gonna be better because you have access to the Drag Abyss plussing, you have access to Dagda for big multi-attacks, and you have the new triggers by then. So again, 2 camps, Phantom Blaster Dragon and Luard. Of course, there's more builds out there, but those are gonna be, I think, the 2 main options we'll want to test. Next up, Pale Moon. Of course, there you can either play the new Nightmare Doll Alice in an actual Nightmare Doll deck, so loads of multi-attacking and just winning in one turn, crazy shit like that. Or you play the Nightmare Doll Alice as the grade 3 in a Harry deck to get your Excel Circle and then use your G-based support like the Harry Stride and the Periton to do all that without actual access to Harry grade 3 himself. Now for Dark Irregular, it's kind of again like Grand Blue and Pale Moon. You either play your new grade 3 if you value the protect markers and then you use all the generic stuff that you have from G, or you go into your actual G build, Sharot, with then the new triggers. For Murakumo, I actually don't really know. I feel like they will need some really solid stuff inside standard and then take that and just add the G zone, because generally Murakumo never was in a really great spot in G. And so the standard stuff really has to elevate them in order to compete with the rest. So we'll see how that goes. Now then we have the mini booster for Kaguro and Royal Paladin. Now I don't think the Nouvelle Vague will have a massive impact. Of course, until they do something really left field insane. But overall, it won't have massive impact because again, you're gonna stride over it. What is really interesting is that we're getting Exculpate the Blaster, meaning that you suddenly have a Blaster grade 3 which creates force markers, so suddenly you have access to blaster only support again, like Blaster Friend Bargle, so you get your counter charge at grade 3 and higher again, which you don't when you're on Alfred. So I don't suspect any major changes in premium from that booster, apart from beautiful bling that I hope every clan gets, but the Blaster grade 3 is something to look forward to. Finally, and this is really far away and super speculative because we know nothing apart from card names, we have the ultra rare booster. But again, it doesn't really matter that we don't have abilities because we can still consider the fact that they have really good names for their archetype. For example, Angel Feather gets Celestial, meaning all the old Celestial support just works again. And then apart from that, you also have great generic G support. So we may see a Celestial based deck with a new grade 3 Celestial, giving you your gift marker, and then also having access to some of the Gavrail stuff that doesn't require a Gavrail name. Now again, you will probably also have people who just want to play a full Gavrail deck, but with new triggers, or Angel Feather Gize. Gold Paladin gets access to Izel again, so people looking forward to that. I know people are looking forward to that, especially since they have their own Tarna clone. And of course, there will also be the people who just play Gurgit with new triggers. Finally, we have Neo Nectar who are getting Musketeer. So again, we are actually gonna see maybe a full Musketeer deck with some G-based support and the new grade 3 Musketeer, so that's something interesting to look forward to as well. So those were basically all the decks I could think of right now that you could play in Premium either now or in the near future. Again, this is a super creative format, so you have insane amounts of card options for all of those decks that I just went over. Regardless, for now, I will be building my Aqua Force, my Grand Blue, and my Shadows in Premium. I will try to max rarity them because, as I said, all those prices are insanely low right now, and I'm just gonna have fun with that. That's all for today. Hope you found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel and click the bell button to stay up to date. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did I miss maybe a deck? Did I miss maybe a build idea? Do you have any builds that you want to test out? Let me know, and I will see you soon. Ciao.